Well, hello and welcome to this session of Execunet Masterclass. I'm your host, as always, Tony Vlahos, and my guest this hour is customer experience consultant and New York Times #1 bestselling author, Joseph Michelli. Well, 2020 took a wrecking ball to the best laid plans of leaders and businesses. Today, Joseph will share how CEOs and presidents of many companies you know and love position their businesses to not only thrive in uncertainty, but also emerge in keeping with the title of his lovely new book, Stronger Through Adversity. Really important stuff, and part of our commitment here at Execunet to connect you with trusted voices, people like Joseph who you could listen to and learn from, to counter adversity with resilience and safely navigate the strange waters around you. Well, I am always delighted to introduce this gentleman. Joseph Michelli is an internationally sought-after speaker, author, and organizational consultant. His insights encourage leaders and frontline workers to grow and invest passionately in all aspects of their lives. He's the author of numerous national bestsellers, including The Starbucks Experience, The New Gold Standard, and the #1 bestseller, Prescription for Excellence. He was named as one of the top 10 thought leaders in customer service by Global Gurus. With that brief intro, I've left out so much. Welcome back, Joseph, to the Execunet stage. They are all yours.
Thank you, Tony. It's always great to be here and to the community of leaders connecting here through Execunet. Thank you for having me back and for taking something that's the most valuable commodity you have, your time with me today. I'd like for you, in your contemplation of questions and maybe even sharing in the chat, just to think about this question. With 1 being substantially weaker and 5 being substantially stronger, how does your company or your leadership compare today to what it was in January of 2020? So 1 means you're substantially weaker than you were January 2020. A 5 means you are substantially stronger. So if you want to just throw some numbers into the chat to kind of get a context of your peers to understand how they perceive this last, now going on 12 months, 13 months of time, depending upon where this started in your world. All right, so in reality, most of us came through what would be considered the most challenging leadership time in the last 100 years. And either we came through it weaker or we came through it stronger. Very few people probably came out exactly the same way that they went in. Now, as a business author, I look for great business minds to share wisdom, and there are so many examples. So why in the world would I start the book with Mike Tyson, right? I mean, he's not a source I rely on in my business book world, but I did. And Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until they're punched in the mouth. And I think the mouth punch example is really something most of us can relate to. We went into 2020 without a plan B that was prepared to take the kind of punch that all of us reeled from. And I love the analogy that Tony used in the opening. He was kind of talking about sailing, being on water. And I think for most of us, we were all on the same turbulent ocean. Granted, we might be on different kind of boats. I interviewed people who were seeing their businesses thrive at levels they could barely manage. For example, I interviewed a president of Microsoft this last year who was responsible for the Teams platform, and they were just struggling to figure out how to manage that, Matt Renner and his team. And then I interviewed simultaneously the president of one of the divisions at Marriott, who was trying to figure out how is she going to manage all the furloughs that she was going to have happen. But whether it was a boom or a bust, 2020 represented a mouth punch that was not really thought of for most businesses. And that mouth punch caused some businesses to immediately collapse. There was no infrastructure. Leadership had not been able to position it and anticipate this kind of volatility, this kind of uncertainty, these kind of chaotic times. And thus they went straight to the mat. Or maybe they just were in a sector that was phenomenally unlucky. Give Marriott as an example, or the airline industry as examples, where there was just an inordinate amount of impact for them. So some of them just went to the mat. Lots of small businesses, not well capitalized, not much digital infrastructure. They were ripe to take this punch, not be able to pivot quickly enough to get back up on their feet before the round ended. Now, there were some who made it through the round and they loped along. They might have gotten some PPP. They may have been able to extend their life, but some of them only extended to get through the round on wobbly legs, never making it through the entirety of the fight. So some collapsed immediately, some were managing. There were some that basically survived. And then there were a bunch of folks who thrived, who positioned themselves for long-term success well in and beyond the pandemic. Now, I can tell you that for me, my plan B was not to be doing a book called Stronger Through Adversity. It was not in my conceptualization. Around November 2019, I didn't say, boy, maybe we'll have a global pandemic and I can write a book about insights on how to manage it. I was really very happy with the book that was on my calendar, which was to write about Godiva chocolate. And it was to be their 95th anniversary in 2021. So 2020, I was going to be doing the research for the book that would ultimately be launched toward the end of the year and take me into 2021. Having talked about this brand that had pivoted effectively from manufactured chocolate, distributed through all kinds of platforms, whether you wanted to get it at your local pharmacy or you wanted to get it at a high-end boutique store in a mall, or you wanted to get their new concept, which was selling coffee in the mornings, mochas, at the Godiva Cafe, all of which was kind of the supported project of a CEO who I had worked with when she was head of tea in China for Starbucks. So clearly they selected Annie Young-Scribner because she was so talented at the cafe environment. And I was ready to write a book about her leadership vision, opening more and more cafes. I was heading toward their manufacturing plant in Pennsylvania to see how the chocolate was made. It was like a golden ticket to the chocolate factory.